President Trump putting Zelenskyy on blast again after the Oval Office smackdown heard around the world. 47 sending the Ukrainian leader to his room for having a bad attitude on a potential peace deal with Russia. And instead of apologizing, Zelenskyy was running over to his European friends, where he said, quote, "An agreement to end the war is still very, very far away, and no one has started all these steps yet." President Trump not happy with that one.
He should be more appreciative because this country has stuck with them through thick and thin. We've given them much more than Europe, and Europe should have given more than us. I want one thing to happen. I want all of those young people to stop being killed. They're being killed by the thousands every single week. The money is one thing, but the death, and they're losing thousands of soldiers a week. He said he thinks the war's going to go on for a long time. And he better not be right about that. That's all I'm saying. Now, maybe somebody doesn't want to make a deal. And if somebody doesn't want to make a deal, I think that person won't be around very long.
President Trump also teasing that he'll have more to say on a minerals deal with Ukraine during his joint address to Congress, which you can catch special coverage starting tomorrow at 9 Eastern right here on Fox News Channel. Meanwhile, the Democrats and the media are screaming, "Russia, Russia, Russia."
The White House has become an arm of the Kremlin.
The Kremlin is delighted.
The only winner in that exchange is Putin.
He's very much in Putin's camp.
As far as I'm concerned, he is an enemy to the United States.
And Secretary Rubio is pointing out how President Trump would be getting a Nobel Peace Prize over his efforts to end the war if only there was a D next to his name.
Shouldn't we all be happy that we have a president who's trying to stop wars and prevent them instead of start them? And I just don't get it. I really don't, other than the fact that it's Donald J. Trump. If this was a Democrat that was doing this, everyone would be saying, well, he's on his way to the Nobel Peace Prize. This is absurd.
Judge Jeanine Pirro, I'm not sure if we heard from you yet on this issue.
I'm so happy you came to me.
I
wasn't here on Friday. I was sick.
Okay.
Welcome back.
Thank you for welcoming me back like that. Okay, here's the deal. Zelenskyy was briefed on why he was supposed to be going to the Oval Office. His people were briefed on what was going to happen in the Oval Office. So he goes there knowing that the United States has given him $350 billion. Gift. The EU has given him $100 billion, which is a loan. Okay, so we're the suckers at the other end. So Trump comes in. He wants to end the killing. And Zelenskyy, at the end of the day, wants to keep fighting. Okay, he doesn't want to stop the fighting. He says, quote, since the end of the war with Russia is, quote, very, very far away. Now, Zelenskyy wanted the moral condemnation of Putin. Zelenskyy wanted, and he started lecturing Donald Trump and J.D. Vance about counting on you to stop Putin. And Zelenskyy is then trying to renegotiate the deal, which is what got J.D. Vance's backup. He said, you don't come here in front of the cameras to renegotiate the deal. You're here for a reason. Now, here's the stupidity of it all. This guy Zelenskyy is playing checkers and Trump is playing chess. He wants to end the death. He wants to end the war. And how do we do that? Putin is an evil man. Trump knows that. He may say, I understand him. But more than anything, Trump wants to keep Putin from connecting with China to protect us. So with this mineral deal, we will have not just security and a collateral for our money, but we'll have Americans there, businesses there. We'll have boots on the ground, not military boots, but American feet on the ground. And you can bet your bottom dollar, you idiot Zelenskyy, that with Americans on the ground, Donald Trump is going to protect us if there is any invasion. How does he not understand that? His ego was so huge, and then the Democrats come in, this Chris Murphy, and says, don't take the deal. This guy Zelensky's a fool. He had a fight with Biden. Biden even yelled at him in 2022 and said, you're an ungrateful pig.
Does this deal go through with the minerals?
It should, right? When you look at what Ukraine has at hand, there's a negotiation to be made. There's a point at which they can come together. And I think all of us have had a chance to watch what happened in the Oval Office play out many times. Some of us have even tried to go back farther and see what that conversation was like before it came to this severe disagreement, or however you want to describe that moment that we all watched together. And it was a cordial discussion before then. Zelenskyy seems to keep putting himself into an awkward position that he's having to climb out of, saying, to which the president responded, Zelenskyy saying, this war is very far from being over. President Trump immediately took to Truth Social and, essentially said, paraphrasing, what a ridiculously stupid statement. There is a way to end this war, and it's through peace, and that is the word that the president continues to use. So the country and the world is going to have to look forward to tomorrow night. This is going to be critical because the president, when he was speaking today in the Roosevelt Room with that financial announcement, investments coming to America, he was asked about this in Q&A from reporters, and he said, I'll have a lot to say about this tomorrow night. So he has said Zelenskyy is welcome to come back to the table with conditions, okay? And also highlighting, with all this Russia talk, how about Europe? Everybody's quick to point out, the media and the left, to say, oh, look at our European allies, the way they're reacting to this. They're also buying a lot of energy and oil and gas every single day from Russia, lining Russia's pockets. So we'll see what he has to say tomorrow night, but I think that's what's next in all of this.
You were off also on Friday. Were you sick too, Greg, or?
Well, that's what the judge told me to say.
Yeah, we were together.
We were both sick.
That's how rumors get started.
Yeah, I've got to take those pictures down off my OnlyFans. There are two funny things going on right now. One, it's like you're watching the media walking in on a movie at the third act, and they have no idea what happened before. And it's like, oh my God, one man is beating up another man. This is terrible. And then you rewind and you find out the guy that's getting beaten up had it coming. Yeah. He's a criminal, and he deserved it. So right now, I find it funny because to me, this is a negotiation process. Anybody who's been in a negotiation knows there's always a walkout or a blow up. I've done it, I don't know, 10 times. I get up, whenever I'm in contract negotiations, I leave. It's the best tip for anybody, get up and leave. Yep. And you know what happened? It resets. My prediction is, of course, there's a deal. Yeah. This was just a little step along the way, and anybody who freaks out about it has never actually. This is the god of transparency. Donald Trump just showed you how negotiations work. He might throw you out. He's turned this whole thing into Celebrity Apprentice. It's some business. He realizes that if you want peace in the world, you don't spread democracy, you spread business. Because you create business relationships with people, and then they don't want to kill you. It's as simple as that. So the question then, the funniest part is like, what do the Democrats do? How do you respond to, once again, this blunt common sense? It's always going to be about the methods. So whether it's about solving the border crisis or DOGE or now Ukraine, what's the pattern? Because Trump is right on all three, especially Ukraine, when he says, look at all these dead people. And this is a consistent Trumpian vibe. He's a pacifist, hates war. He may hate it from a sober perspective that it's such a waste, or he may be emotional about it. Who knows? He hates war. So he's right on Ukraine. He's right on DOGE. He's right on the border. So if you're right on all those things, what do you argue about? The methods. The border's already changed for the better. We know that. It feels different. But what he did was so mean. Then you look at DOGE. The American public's behind DOGE, but he's so mean the way he's doing it. Then you talk about Ukraine. Did you see what he did to Zelenskyy? Doesn't matter. He's right. He's right. So you can argue about how he's doing it and that it's so harsh and unbecoming. It doesn't matter because he's right about the solution. So you can quibble all you want. We have a new president. He's got a pulse. He doesn't need a life alert. Zelenskyy just found out that maybe he should wear a suit next time. Those are tiny little things, tiny little things. The big deal is when you're right on the issues, sometimes you got to be harsh. In all those areas, he's the adult in the room, which is exactly what we voted for.
How proud, Jessica, will you be when Donald Trump receives the Nobel Peace Prize?
I hope he invites me to Sweden so that I can be there in the audience to cheer him on. So I get it. There are a lot of people in the your words hurt my feelings bucket, and that is not the place to be when you're looking at something like this. But I do think that it's important to consider the fact that this quote unquote peace deal that he's offering means that Zelenskyy essentially cedes his country to Russia. And no one has explained what the sudden change in the last couple of weeks and the way that Donald Trump is talking about Ukraine and Zelenskyy is spurred by. He didn't used to call Zelenskyy a dictator. He didn't used to say that his people hated him. He didn't used to say he had a 4% approval rating. He didn't used to say any of the total blasphemy that he's been throwing out there the last few weeks. Elon Musk also on Twitter a couple days ago saying, I agree, to someone who said that the U.S. should get out of NATO and the UN.
Blasphemy.
These are all things. Is that bad? I couldn't come up with the right word.
It's
what?
funny.
Okay. Well, have a good chuckle at it. These are all things that Putin wants to hear. And you know that because his own spokesman, Peskov, said as much, said the rapidly changing U.S. foreign policy configurations largely coincides with our vision. Dmitry Medvedev, the insolent pig about Zelenskyy, finally got a proper slapdown in the Oval Office. Trump is right. The Kyiv regime is gambling with World War III. So if you are satisfying someone that we all agree is a dictator and authoritarian to that level, don't you think maybe the methods aren't that great? And that's not to say that we don't need to come to the table and say, this is what our peace plan is. These are the territorial lines that we are comfortable with. No one thinks that he's going back to a pre-2014 era. Zelenskyy himself doesn't think that.
I don't think it's smart, though, Jessica.
But you just made a case about it being
that somebody else might agree with your perspective. If that's what you believe, if Trump believes, there's no, okay, Putin doesn't want this war. Zelenskyy doesn't want this war. Trump doesn't want this. So they're all in agreement.
But they're not in agreement because this actually has to come down to the brass tacks of how that country gets split up.
And who holds the cards?
No. I get it.
Ain't Zelenskyy.
Big man, I get it. I heard it. Tommy Tuberville was on TV today saying this is about what Putin and Donald Trump want. This doesn't have to do with Zelenskyy. But guess what? There are millions of Ukrainians who would beg to differ. No, they're not dead.
Already
they don't
dead.
have a future with him. They do not have a future with Zelenskyy. Zelenskyy is dependent upon us.
Do you guys get what you're saying? You're just saying that a sovereign country.
Saying?
Yes, I do. Besides the blasphemy word, which maybe I shouldn't have used, I know exactly what I was saying.
It's time for Ukraine to start building and stop
part
the
of
killing.
Russia again.
Nobody's
That's what
making it part of Russia.
You're telling them you can't be part of NATO. You're telling them you don't get your territory back.
No, because that was agreed upon decades ago. And every decade they move closer and closer to Russia, NATO has. And the Crimea and everything else is a response to NATO.
Russia. NATO encroaching on them.
They are an independent country who believes strong. And I'm not pro-Russia at all.
Really? It doesn't sound like that.
Don't give me that,
You
really.
don't give me that.
Don't give me that. You know what? The truth is they stand for this, and they don't want NATO any closer. And it's been decades that's been agreed to.
They invaded a sovereign nation and
do you remember 3 years ago?
They've stolen their children.
Okay, 3 years ago.
1 second, Jessica.
No.
3 years ago, I sat here and I said the Russian-Ukrainian thing is like a family fight across the street. We don't want to go over there and get in between a family fight. We did. It's 3 years later.
I'm still waiting to hear what Jessica's plan is to remove Russia from eastern Ukraine.
What?
We haven't heard that yet from you. So until you tell us what your peace deal is, I think this is probably the better deal.
Really?
Jessica, how are you going to get the Russians out of eastern Ukraine?
You make a deal
if the
with
Ukrainians
them.
you make a deal with them.
But the deal is not giving up all of Ukrainian territory and calling him a dictator when he's clearly not.
You know
okay, so how do you get them to stop fighting and get Russia to leave the country?
I don't know.
I don't know is your answer. I don't know.
Sorry, I left my 4 stars at home when I came into work. I'm just saying, the guy is talking like a Kremlin plant.
If you can't do it militarily, you got to go do it at the negotiating table.
You know what? The truth is that Donald Trump's job is to get a deal. And that means you don't take one side or the other.
He's taking one side.
And their interpretation of his not taking, of his
Brett
not
says we have to go.
criticizing
Stop.
Putin is that he's pro-Putin. He's a deal maker.
Okay.
Glad
Who
we
likes
settled
Vladimir
that.
Putin?
All right. You know, you're like Zelensky. Just be quiet for
Insolent
once.
pig.
Yeah.